Alright, so I'm still trying to figure out lighting, so they kind of look different. I think my other past few videos I was like white as hell in the face. I am white, but I'm not that white, so still figuring this out, still working in progress. So if I'm criticizing lighting in film, take that with a grain of salt. Film I watched recently, this was one of my most anticipated films of last year, but I didn't get around to watching it till a few days ago, and that is A Real Pain. This is directed by Jesse Eisenberg. He also wrote the film, and also starring Kieran Culkin. And this is essentially a buddy comedy. These are two cousins who had a grandmother pass away. She's of Jewish, Polish descent, and they go on a Polish tour. Basically, a tour that shows all the Jewish culture that was in Poland and all the tragedies that came along with World War II and Germany and all those things. So to start this film off, I really loved Kieran Culkin in this film. He was such an interesting character, very fascinating guy to watch. He just brought so much energy and chaos. It was quite hilarious throughout, and you could just really connect with his character. So have a few other supporting characters along the way who are also on the tour with them. One thing I thought this film really nailed was just the awkwardness that comes along with some of these tours, or like when they had the couple that introduced, we're the boring couple, and it's like, I don't know, I've just been in, I've never been on like a tour or like a tour like this, but I've been on kind of tours similar like that, and there's always that couple. I thought they really nailed it with the supporting cast. I like that they didn't go with at least anyone I recognize. I enjoy when they didn't just go, maybe had to do with the budget of the film, but they didn't just get a bunch of like recognizable people. So I think you could believe the illusion that these were all strangers. But getting into it, let's get into Kieran Culkin. I thought his character was absolutely amazing. I think a lot of people will come out thinking that he deserves awards for this role, and I definitely think he does. He does a great job at being chaotic, funny, endearing, while it's at the same time having some real deep mental struggles. They can also really see through the film. And now let's get to Jesse Eisenberg. This is a part that I think I was kind of mixed. I do always think it's a bold move if you're a director to cast yourself, especially in a starring role. And I understand he also wrote this film, so maybe he had him in mind. But my issue is more with Jesse Eisenberg is he's really only worked in two films, in my opinion. The Social Network, where he depicts a guy that everyone believes is a robot, and it was insanely good at doing that. I think that's an amazing film. I'll definitely get to that someday. And Squid and the Whale, and that was when he was like 16 years old. But he always plays that same person, and I really had a struggle with kind of seeing this as a unique character. But I understood that he wrote things that were very common with him, where he's kind of cold, he's shy, he's pulled back, but he's also very intelligent, somewhat witty and dry. But I don't know. I really kind of think maybe if they went with an actor that had a lot more acting chops, he could just focus more on the direction. I think it could have paid off a little better, but nevertheless, I thought Jesse Eisenberg did a fine job. But Kieran Culkin, to me, outshines. I think what's interesting about this film is the contrast in character difference that Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin have. One is a very open. He is not shy. He says stuff impulsively. He'll make impulsive jokes. Where Jesse Eisenberg just kind of wants to stay quiet, be in the background, just absorb all the information along the way. And so really what's driving this plot is that they're trying to reconnect with where their grandmother lived up. They never went there. There was a promise. She died of cancer. So there was a promise that they would always go back, and they would always go to the house where she born at. So that was really the motivation for this story. And I thought this film was actually very excellently paced. Only came in at a minute. It only came in at an hour 25, which I think is a great pace for a film like this. It doesn't take too long to do things. It edits well. I would say one thing, I wouldn't say any of the cinematography or the camera work was really overly impressive. To me, it felt pretty standardized. When it comes to the score of this film, I don't know. I thought for me this felt really like a cliche indie film, like this soundtrack where it's just that kind of slow piano piece or whatever. I know. I just feel like I've seen a lot of films that have used very similar soundtracks, very similar scores, and this to me really didn't stand out and just kind of felt derivative. I guess finding out they actually did go with I feel kind of like a piece of shit. I searched when I was doing some research for this film. I realized that there was actually some like well esteemed established Polish pianist. So I didn't mean to insult anyone by that, but for me, I just thought it was kind of felt like an average kind of score for an indie flick like this. There's some really powerful scenes and ideas that I think are also expressed through this film when they're going through all of these places that in the tour guide. I thought the tour guide also was amazing. Whoever that guy is, I never heard of him. Here's his picture, but he did an excellent job. I know it wasn't a crazy acting performance, but I thought just did very standardized well. He had that British voice that was calming and nice to listen to, so that probably helped too. But it's kind of a reminder when you're going through all these places that you are getting to kind of have like a nice luxurious, depending on how much money you have, luxurious tour of some of like the most horrific and graphic things that have happened in recent history. And I thought Kieran Culkin, he had a scene where he was on the train and he starts freaking out about how it's like we're Jews at the back of this train 50, 60 years ago. Those Jews were going into internment camps, and now we can have a nice guided tour and go to the nicest restaurants in Poland. So I thought that was a very interesting thing, and I think that's one issue I think I have kind of with a lot of these like tours of these kind of places where it's like, yeah, you get the privilege to enjoy a nice lax, but what's actually coming from here is like some of the saddest, darkest moments in human history. So I thought the film did a great job at presenting that scene. That was probably my favorite part of this. And you can also, I think this movie also has a lot to say about mental health and how do we grieve great tragedy, how do we grieve losing our loved ones and things like that. It seems like a real struggle. It seems like every day now there's always a new tragedy, a new tour show that's happening right in front of our eyes. That there was an interesting idea where Kieran Culkin said, well, why don't we just cry for all these bad things? And then Jesse Eisenberg was like, well, we wouldn't achieve anything by just crying. But I was like, well, maybe that wouldn't happen again. And I thought that was a great way of putting it, is that, yeah, we don't really, these terrible, horrific things happen in history and right now. And it seems like we as humans, the way that we deal with it is just kind of learn about it and move on, but kind of learn about it more of a factoid or more of like an academic sense. But it's like these are actual people that had to go through this awful, horrific thing. So you can make yourself sound smart and know all these cool factors, but it's just horrific, and it feels like we don't really spend enough time grieving them, even though we do grieve them a lot. And I definitely could relate to that. But overall, I think this was an excellent film. I do highly recommend this film. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Excellent work. I'm really curious where to see Jesse Eisenberg will go into the future. Hopefully not acting as much, but I thought this was an excellently written movie. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. Go seek it out. Thanks for watching.